Welcome to the Generous Business Owner Podcast, where business owners gain inspiration and encouragement to live a legacy, not just leave one. And now your hosts, Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt.
Welcome, everyone, to the Generous Business Owners Podcast. Today, we have with us a very special guest, Lynn Weaver, who's the CEO of Shady Maple, and they run the largest buffet in the USA. Welcome to the show today, Lynn.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here and be with you.
Yeah. Well, let's just dive in. We'd love to hear a little bit about your life, some of the ups and downs, some of the ways that you saw God working through your family, through the business. But to kick us off, tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in the Weaver household.
Yeah, it was an awesome experience growing up in the Shady Maple Weaver household. I mean, literally, I grew up right beside the business. I mean, you could throw a rock and hit the store from our house, the grocery store. And being in that close to business where you're integrated in everything is a huge blessing. And obviously, I think probably a little bit of a curse too, because every dinner conversation was all about the business, the ups and downs, the challenges, the opportunities. But I do look at it as more of a blessing than anything else. Just being able to be part of the business. Like, I was sitting in financial discussions and meeting with our CPA around the kitchen table when I was 10 years old. Yeah. Not many people have that opportunity. I probably knew more about financial things than any of my friends did or any of my peers in school at a very, very young age. So I look at that as a huge blessing. And our family was a fun family. I mean, my parents were amazing, Christian family, grandparents amazing. And I grew up in a really loving family that worked really hard, really long hours, but also knew how to have fun.
That's awesome.
And my dad, one thing special about him is when we go to vacation or go hunting or something, he completely could detach where he didn't even know he had a business anymore. And we would just have fun as a family. And
that's awesome.
He would do everything 100%, work 100% and play 100%. And he still does.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great role model. That's a great role model. Well, I like to ask our listeners, especially those who have been successful in business, what, if any, illegal or slightly outside the gray lines activities were you involved in those early years?
Yeah, growing up in the business, I always had that entrepreneur bug. I'm not sure where it came from, or I truly feel God put it in my spirit from little on up. So as I was little, I was always trying to be like, okay, how can I make $1? How can I create an investment? What can I do? And one of the earliest things I did was we lived on some land with a barn and a house, and we always had some dogs outside. And somehow about once or twice a year, our dogs would have puppies, and we didn't know how this happened because we had 2 female dogs, and somehow the neighbor dogs and that got together, and we constantly had different types of puppies. And we're like, oh my, what are we going to do? Like, some of the litters were 10, 12 puppies. And I'm like, I was probably 8 years old. I'm like, I got this. I'm going to figure this out. I would take these puppies when they're weaned down to the store and set up on the porch and outside where the entrance is, and have a big box with these puppies and had a big puppy sale.
Okay.
People coming by, I would, get them all interested and be playing with these puppies and get them to hold them and talk them into buying these puppies. So that went on for quite a while. And then one year I'm like, I had this brainy idea. I'm like, if I, what started it was a lady came up to me and I said, we had 1 puppy left, and this lady did not want the puppy, and somehow I talked her into it. And she said, how much you want for it? I said, tell you what, it's free. Just give me a donation. The puppy's free, but give me a donation for it, and you can have her free. Well, the funny part was she gave me $20, and I was $10 before. And I'm like, this is genius.
Yeah, that is
I
genius.
got double markup for my puppies by asking for donation. From then on, the puppies were always free with donation, and I made more money with the next 10 litters.
That's awesome, Lynn. That is awesome. You're a genius ahead of your time. That was a marketing hack there. So yeah, walk us through some of the school years, how you met your wife, and then how you got into the business.
Yeah, I grew up in private school, Gaiman's Mennonite High School and Terry Hill Mennonite High School, really small, great schools. So I actually, except for my senior year in high school, I love school because I'm a people person. I love being around people. I love making friends and playing sports. And I think my senior year, I sort of like, my focus went to like, okay, I want to do business. I want to make money. And I completely checked out, and my grades started slipping, but I passed, I graduated. And, but yeah, school for me was a good experience. I look back on that as like, I loved school. It was fun.
Mhm.
And after school, I was like, what am I going to do next? Am I going to go to college? And I had this one idea. I told my dad, I said, I've been working in the store, the grocery store and the restaurant ever since I was 5, 6 years old, helping do odd jobs. And then at age 13, I officially started punching a clock and getting a real job with structure, and 2 evenings a week and Saturdays, and summertime, it was like 40, 50 hours every week. But then when I graduated high school, I told my dad, I said, I think I should get a real job now. Like, some of my friends were in construction. I said, I want to get a real job, like what men do, like work hard with construction. And I want to build homes, learn the trades. And he's like, why would you want to do that? Like, we have hundreds of employees here and there's plenty of opportunity. And why would you want to leave the business? So we went back and forth. And I actually had lined up a job with a great company. And I was going to start that following Monday. I think this was like Thursday. I was going to start that following Monday. And I could tell my dad was like, his head was like, he's like, I do. And somehow he talked me out of it. And looking back, I still, a small part of me kind of wishes he wouldn't have talked me out of it, that I would have had that under my belt of that experience. But then maybe I would have missed other things too. So I don't know. God, looking back, I can see God's fingerprints all through it. So
yeah,
I'm glad I stayed, but I'm kind of wish I would, because I always thought construction was fascinating. And
yeah.
my son's actually in construction right now.
Okay.
And he's right out of high school, and he loves construction. And my other son's working construction. He's gonna be a senior this year in high school, and he's worked all summer. He was doing remodel work, so it must be in our blood somewhere where we enjoy that type of work. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was me growing up.
That's awesome. Yeah. So fast forward. Well, how'd you meet your wife? How many years married? And then tell us about your other kids.
Yeah, out of high school, we had some great friend groups, and literally in my high school year, through a friend of a friend, I get introduced to this amazing young lady. I was like, instantly, like something special about her. And I asked another friend, I was like, do you know her? And they're like, yeah, we know her sort of. Like, I was like, where's she live? I'm thinking maybe she lives like in another county or far away. Here she literally lived 1.5 miles from my house. And we never met until my senior year somehow. I'm still not sure how that happened.
Yeah.
But we started doing things together as a group. It was a great, casual, fun, non-threatening way to get to know each other in a group environment with church youth group, different things like that. And a few years later, in 1997, we got married, and we've been on our honeymoon ever since,
There
literally.
you go. There you go. And so that's 26 years, 25, 26,
26 years, and
26 years.
we had 4 children. Their ages 22 to 16 now, 2 boys, 2 girls. My oldest daughter, she's Lindsay. She's married. We have an amazing son-in-law, Ethan. He helps lead worship at Petra Church. And yeah, it's been a huge blessing to see our children thrive in their own DNA that God gave them. And just, I really love getting behind my children, find out what makes them tick, what what really burns in their heart. Where's God leading them, and get behind that and pour fire on it. So that to me is really exciting to see how each child's different, and each one has different talents and dreams and visions and passionate things that God put in their heart. My other son, Colin, he's 21. He's his second year now with YWAM Kona, traveling all over the world. And so it's exciting to see them doing different things and finding their way in ways that I never did. So that's really neat.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Good. Well, walk us through what those, so you're out of school, you didn't go into construction. What were the early years like there at and was it the largest buffet in the USA at that time?
No, it definitely wasn't.
Okay.
And my role right out of high school was strictly the supermarket, the grocery store.
Okay.
I dove in head first at age 18.
Yep.
The day I could get my CDL license, I went and applied, got my permit, got my CDL license. And I did, my goal was to do every single job possible in the plaza. And I did almost every one, not quite, but I did everything from bagging groceries to cashiering to stocking produce to driving truck to whatever else, cutting meat. I enjoyed it all and did almost everything. And I'm really happy for that experience because it just helped me get well-rounded on what every person's day looks like and feels like. And it really helps lead when you know, okay, that's how that job feels. And
Yeah.
that's what a good fit for that job is.
Yeah. Say more about that, because I think there's a common theme there of next gen of successful business owners. If you have that ability to actually do the job, not just see it on paper or watch someone else do it, but say more about what that meant or how that helped you in later years lead well.
Yeah, great feedback, great comment. Because even when I hire, even managers now, when I hire managers, I always tell them that we consider ourselves working managers, not just office people that tell people what to do. Like, I'm a big person on getting in there, get your hands dirty, lead by example. Obviously, you can't always be in the weeds because you're not leading. We all know that, but I do think there is times that we should be in the weeds and lead by example. And there is nothing better than servant leadership where you show you're willing to take the trash out and do the jobs that nobody feels like doing. Like my parents, sometimes they'll be, not too long ago, they were washing dishes on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And some of the employees are like, who are them people?
Yeah.
They when they said, well, that's the founders, and they're like, a couple employees, I think still this day, they still don't believe that that's true, because they're like, there's no way the founders are washing dishes on a Saturday night. But that's who we are. It's just, we jump in and help, and when things are short, and we make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And for you to be able to say, yeah, I actually did that job, and I can relate to your, whatever the struggle is or challenge or joy or whatever it is. I feel like there's a lot of value in that. So you're working all these different jobs, bagging groceries at the grocery store, and everything from sweeping floors probably to doing food testing, and everything in between. So what's the next level that you start, working your way into leadership? And what are some of those core values that you learned along the way?
Yeah, through my 20s, it was all about just hands-on working, getting to know the people, experience each environment and learn each environment. Then in my 30s, I started taking on more and more responsibility, where I became the produce manager and started taking on additional departments as the years went along. And through that all, our vision, values, and mission was always centric first. I mean, serving all with honor and integrity. That's who we are. It's what we do. It's honoring God, and our faith always came first in every single thing we did. And another one of our core values is just having fun and family and caring about each other. So it was always part of our DNA. We integrated and spiderwebbed everything into that, where we weave it together. It's part of our culture, and we protect our culture at all costs, because it seems like the bigger we get, the harder it is to protect that culture. And we have 800 employees now, and it's really hard that all 800 are going to have our values and especially faith. But we ask that everybody respects our culture and our faith, and when they're here, they line up with it. And it's not as that seems harder and almost impossible, but we're really intentional about holding our culture.
Tell me, that's a big topic today, especially when you have 800 employees and the type of businesses that you're running. How do you lean into that? How do you encourage that? And talk about what you do to promote it, and then what you do to protect it.
I mean, it's little things, as little as having it posted throughout the complex on the walls and on our letterheads and our agendas for meetings, to even like whenever we have meetings, we'll talk about like, why are we here? Why do we do what we do? Or if there's a disciplinary thing, we always base it around our core values of, okay, this is what happened. This is how it lined up or didn't line up with our core values. So, but the biggest part is just when we hire, we're so careful when we hire leadership or promote leadership that they are part of our core values and our core culture, and that they can carry that forth and promote it to everybody, that all their peers and all the people that they're coaching and mentoring underneath them. So it's caught, not taught a lot of times, but you need to teach it also.
Yeah. So talk about how the business grew. If you weren't the biggest buffet in the USA, kind of talk about when you achieved that. What size were you when you started developing, got into your 30s? What were some of your next positions? And what was the business doing at that point, and how did you see that growth achieved?
Yeah, in my mid 30s, I took over more significant roles, and where I was in charge of the whole supermarket. And not every year was hugely successful, and we definitely were not the biggest buffet in the USA, but we had a mindset where we're going to grow. We always had a mindset where we want growth. We don't ever want to stagnate, but we also want healthy growth. Now, back in 2000, when my dad actually built the smorgasbord, we had as some of you know, we had the really small restaurant where we started in the 80s. It was like, first it was 300 seat smorgasbord. I mean, that's super tiny.
Yeah.
And then we doubled the size of that, made it a 600 seat smorgasbord. And then we outgrew that. And then in 2000, we built the initial smorgasbord where it is now, but we only built half of it. It was 1,000 seats. And then in 2005, this was all planned out before we started. We just didn't have the financing to do everything at once. In 2005, then we built what's here now, which is a 2,000 seat smorgasbord, where we can literally seat 2,000 people at one time when we're at max capacity. And that happens usually, not quite, it happens throughout the year, maybe 4, 5, 6 times, especially the day before Mother's Day. The Saturday before Mother's Day is always our biggest day of the year. Like that week, moms aren't allowed to cook. All moms get taken out to eat. And so the Saturday before Mother's Day is always our biggest day. And we'll get up to 11,000 people in one day.
Wow.
On that day.
Wow. What 11,000 people on one day?
And we'll do 11,000 people the day before Mother's Day. And
wow. What's that like?
That stresses everybody out in a good way. Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's high-fiving and saying, great job, that was awesome. But during the day, there's some points where we had people crying because it's just like, it's intense. Like, you're wondering, is the day going to work out? And are we ever going to get the line in? And we're going to run out of food or not? But we put a lot of planning into it. So each year goes a little smoother, but there's still times where it's super tense and you wonder if you're going to have gray hair at the end of the day or not.
Yeah. Well, Lynn, tell us a little bit walk us through some of those growing pains through the years? 2005, you doubled the size of your restaurant, it sounds like, and then 2008, the economy changed. I don't know if that impacted your business or not, but what what kind of bumps in the road or struggles have you needed to deal with through the years that would be helpful for others to learn from?
Yeah, in 2005, when we doubled the size of the business, it was extremely stressful because we didn't have enough employees, and instantly we were busier. And yeah, we had people working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And then we start wondering if are good people going to leave because they're getting burned out. So that was a growing pains.
Mm-hmm.
And then during, you said about 2008, which, yeah, a lot of my friends in 2008 had some really rough years. I mean, almost going bankrupt. And fortunately for us, that was some of our better years because people looked at it as the whole plaza was looked at as a value destination. And we were keeping our prices low during that time. I mean, as low as we can. And then we literally had some really good years for them years. It almost, felt a little guilty for a little bit. And then when we came out of 2008, when we came close to 2020, there was actually a couple of years that weren't so good. When everything was booming and a lot of construction people are like, hey, this is awesome. We're like, what happened? And it was a lot of different things. But the most extreme thing that ever happened in my lifetime, probably for most people, was during COVID. When we're just zinging along, things are starting to go pretty good again, and COVID hits, and literally it felt like overnight they came to us and said, hey, by the way, you got to close your smorgasbord, like close the doors.
Yeah.
And we're geared up for 5,000 to 10,000 people a day, all the food on hand, employees, and literally we got to close.
Wow.
I mean, it was so stressful. I usually sleep good at night. There was some sleepless nights. Like, there was people saying things like, you realize there'll never be a smorgasbord ever again. Like, because of COVID, people's habits changed. Nobody's going to accept a buffet style environment ever again there's not enough social distancing. Too many people are touching the same spoons, things like that. Like, you got to change a menu restaurant. Well, we're not set for a menu restaurant. We're done. We would have literally had to close the doors and turn it into a church or something because it wouldn't work. So my mind's like would start spinning when I'm trying to fall asleep. Like, what if there's never a buffet restaurant ever again? Like, what are we going to do? Like, are we going to survive? And then during the middle of this, the smorgasbord's closed. I think it was 5 months. And I try to forget them times. But during that time, the grocery store, the supermarket, is literally having double sales of normal per week because now people can't eat at restaurants. They're shopping more at grocery stores. And so we brought a lot of our employees down there, and we're having fun at the grocery store, stressful fun because you can't even buy stuff. Some of the shelves are empty. I never dealt with so much chaos in such a short amount of time. And then we have people that would come to the store, and one customer wouldn't social distance properly, and they're getting fights with each other and screaming. And one person wouldn't have a mask on, they'd be getting cursed out by another customer. And it's just like every day my life was like full of drama. It felt like a soap opera. Like, when's this nightmare going to end? And that was really, really some crazy stressful times. I mean, the good part is it did make us better. Like, we learned through COVID, like, what works and what don't work, what areas are making money and not making money, because we had to focus extremely well on let's do what we're good at, and the rest let's stop doing. So it gave us the courage to stop doing some things that weren't working out well in the past. And we focus on this is our core strengths. This is what we're going to focus on. And when we came out of COVID, we learned a lot, and especially the supermarket side, like when all the other grocery stores were telling people like, don't buy much and don't do this, and they stopped advertising, we literally went on the aggressive side because I had all these restaurant connections to get food. Like all these restaurant people were saying, where are we going to sell our food? The restaurants are closed. I said, well, we'll take it. We'll figure out how to sell it. So I was buying literally 18-wheeler loads of steak for like $3 a pound, selling it for $4 a pound, and advertising it. We had people driving down from New York, New
Oh,
Jersey,
wow.
Connecticut, just because we were saying we have plenty of supplies at great prices and all our competitors didn't. So we gained a lot of market share during COVID and kept a lot of it after COVID. So that's the good news, but it was a rocky roller coaster through it.
Yeah. So it sounds like the grocery store was thriving. It was drama, but it was thriving.
Mm-hmm.
But the restaurant, so how long did it take for the restaurant to come back? Like overnight it shut down.
Overnight it shuts down. We're giving literally like we had all this food prep the next day and no place to go with it. So we're giving like we flooded the food banks. All our employees got all the free food they wanted. It was crazy. And I hate throwing food out. I've been in Haiti and places like that. I hate throwing food out. I don't like waste of any kind.
Yeah.
We're giving all the food away. We're having food drives just with different local food banks, things like that. And then 5 months later, when we go to reopen, a lot of our employees had literally disappeared. I mean, we were encouraging them, like, please stay with us and open as soon as we can. Well, a lot of our employees, they don't like sitting at home doing nothing. They have a good work ethic. They wanted to work. So they got jobs other places where they were hiring.
Yeah.
And so when we went to reopen again, it was tough. I mean, it felt like we're starting a new business all over again. And it took another 2 years after COVID to get back to where we felt was healthy again, where we have good customer count, where the right amount of employees, the right amount of training. We're still running probably 30 people short right now today.
Wow.
We're still looking probably for 20 to 30 employees right now, depending full-time, part-time, but but we're getting our numbers in the smorgasbord are finally back to record numbers again, but it took that long after COVID to get back there. But we're finally this year we're going to hit record numbers again for the first time since COVID.
Wow. So what are some of the things that you learned during, I mean, that was definitely a crisis. There was no way you could plan for that. Like who sits around and says, what if there's a global pandemic that just completely shuts us down in one day and we have to give all our food away? But what did you learn through that process? Probably what was the roughest time? So when were you actually, how many weeks or months were you actually completely shut down? And then what did it take to start opening gradually?
Yeah, we were closed for 5 months. Then we reopened. Then literally a couple months later, right after Thanksgiving, they say, okay, you got to close again. Because I don't remember COVID surge again.
Yes.
But now between Thanksgiving to Christmas, we need to close again. And that's always our best month of the year, always.
Mm-hmm.
And we're closed again.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like, I guess the biggest thing I learned through it is just perseverance. Like, and I really, my prayer time really got caught up quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I really turned to God, like, I know that you care about me. I know that somehow you turn all things into good. I'm just not seeing it right now, but I trust that somehow good's going to come out of this. And then I started feeling sorry for myself, and I'd read about Job. I'd read about Joseph in prison, and I'd be like, okay, like my life's way better than this.
Yeah.
I have food, I have shelter, I have clothing. The funny part was, like, some of the most stressful weeks, I called a couple of my really close friends. I said, guys, like, I'm feeling more stressed than I have in the last of my life. Like, let's just get together. Yeah. So for a half a year, every single Saturday, we would get together over lunchtime and just hang out.
Yeah.
We would eat some food together. We would pray together. Sometimes we'd like play a board game. Yeah. Just to get my mind, like, it helped us all. We were all business owners. It got our mind off the stresses of life, the things because when I see a challenge and and I can figure out a solution, I thrive on that. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Yes.
But when I see a challenge and I don't know how to figure out a solution, wow, like my type A personality gets like really shut down. Like I want to fix things. But there was times where like, because the rules would change every single month. Like as soon as we have it figured out, now all the COVID rules change and you're trying to figure it out again.
Yeah.
And you're not sure what's going to happen next, but.
So perseverance, just prayer time.
Mhm.
It's amazing how and we've seen this as a consistent theme as well. I mean, all of us in our lives, but even as we've interviewed successful business owners, when they go through the trials and the low points, and James 1, 2 to 5, consider it all
Mhm.
joy when you face trials of many kinds, and
Ah,
talks
that's
about
hard.
building character. And, I just read a book recently called High Performance Habits. And one of the things they talk about is when you're leaning in the challenges to not necessarily try to like completely avoid it, but to sometimes you got to lean in and honor the struggle and just appreciate that, okay, we're in it. We're going to learn what we can from it. And it sounds like you, it didn't feel like it at the time, but that was probably some of the most growing years that you ever had was, or those 5 months and then getting shut down again between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So perseverance, prayer life, what else would you say you learned through that time?
One of the things I started doing during that time is at least one Wednesday a month, I would leave the house around 6 o'clock in the morning and just drive somewhere, usually a different place every time. And I would spend 8 hours alone. I'd
Hmm,
go for walks, sit in my truck, listen to the Bible, listen to worship music, and
that's
just a lot
awesome.
of times just do nothing and
That's awesome.
listen to hear God speak. And a lot of times in that 8 hour block, sometimes it felt like I'm hitting my head against the wall, I'm getting nowhere. And then all of a sudden, like from hour 7 to 8, like I would get so much revelation and sense of presence from God. Like I
Yeah.
valued that time so deeply where I knew God was there. I knew God loved me. I get inspirational ideas. I would get even words from my kids, like words of encouragement for them. I text them things like that. So
Yeah.
I just learned to like really go deep in relation with God and to hear God better and to take time for that where life's busy and it's
Yeah.
so easy to not realize that we can hear God at any time. And sometimes the business of life, we're not hearing God and it's our fault, not his fault.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful, Lynn. Thank you for sharing that. So before we move on, I'm going to talk a little bit about generosity and then a tip, one tip that you want to share with our listeners. But before we move on, so how old you have 4 children, right?
Mm-hmm.
How old would have they been when COVID hit and watched you like enduring this crisis and how you handled that?
Yeah, I had two teenagers from that time and two middle schoolers, and
Yeah. Very
um,
formative years, right?
very
Any,
formative years.
yeah.
My son was in high school, and all of a sudden he was a great basketball player, and all of a sudden their season gets shut down, and then they're allowed to
Hmm.
play a game or two but they have to wear a mask while they're playing basketball. Just crazy stuff. So, but I do as a family, like we had a lot of great conversations. Like, okay, like this isn't what we want right now, but
Yeah.
let's focus on how can we bless others through this? How can we
Yeah.
be generous through this? How can we pray through this and get better and not bitter and
Yes.
not just really not go in a shell, but be a light to the world through really dark situations. Because what was really interesting is so many people's hearts were just so open during this time to
Yeah.
receive agape love
Yeah.
from God. And it gave us so many opportunities to share Jesus' love with people that would have never been open to it before because
Yeah.
there was so much uncertainty. Like, what if I get COVID? Like, I have a friend that died. I might die too. Like, I
Right.
had two really good friends that I thought they were really healthy and they passed away during COVID and it was
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the,
So there was a lot of opportunities there. So I'm going to transition here as we round towards the finish line. One of the things that I'd love to hear you talk a little bit. You mentioned when COVID hit, giving food, and I can relate so well with you. I hate to see, one scoop of mashed potatoes wasted, like, or one piece of meatloaf. And you talked about just giving it to the employees, the food banks. So there's a form of generosity. Talk a little bit about, and you talked about sharing with others that were struggling during that time. That's another form. There's a lot of different forms of generosity. Talk a little bit about how you view uh, your opportunities and the things that you've seen God using the gifts that you have in your hand to be generous with.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity because I was blessed with a heritage of generosity. My grandpa, my mom's father, that owned this property as a farmer before we owned it, before my dad owned it. Now my brother and I own it. He was probably the most generous man I've ever met in my life. I mean, when I was growing up, when I was really small, like kindergarten age, my parents both worked 60, 70 hours a week, and a lot of times he would babysit me. So I have these awesome memories of being with my grandpa where he would literally get the shirt off his back if somebody needed it. That's the kind of person he was. Like, we would drive around, and I don't think he ever passed a hitchhiker without picking them up, taking them out of his way to where they want to go, and buying them a meal.
Yep.
That's just who he was. And so that's what I grew up with. And that's what I feel like I want to carry that same spirit myself. And I want to pass that to my children's and their children's children. I mean, we do so many things here that I feel are just, it's a way to give back to community. It's a way to be a pass through of God's blessing on us. The favor is, we have a benevolence fund for employees where if somebody's going through a hardship, we'll help them out, whatever that looks like. We're
Wow.
huge on tithing and offerings, way over and above the 10%. I just feel that that's a mandate from God for us, is to give back to community, to give to nonprofits, to give anything that advances the kingdom of heaven on earth. I get really passionate about.
That's awesome.
I support a lot of international ministries, especially, like, for some reason my heart's around food. So if somebody internationally, like even in Haiti, if they're helping feed people that if they don't get a meal, they might starve to death, I get really excited about that.
Yeah.
But anything that advances the kingdom of heaven throughout the earth, yeah, we support a lot of different ministries locally and internationally, because I feel that's the reason, one of the reasons that we're successful in the favor of God's on this business is to be a conduit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. That's such a, and I love the heritage there that you talked about from you. I think you called him Grandpa. That, riding around in your truck at those really formative years, and that baton's being passed on, and you're using your gifts well and honoring God through your generosity. Really appreciate you sharing that. Lynn, share with us one tip that you would like to leave with our listeners, maybe who are walking the dog, running on the treadmill, doing their sit-ups. What's one tip you would leave with our listeners today?
Wow, one tip. How do you sum that up?
Yeah.
I would, well, first of all, have a generous spirit. It's not just about money, it's about many other things. Stay humble. Yeah, if you're not humble, God will figure out a way to help you in that area. Yeah, have a generous spirit. Have fun. Like, one of my core values is to laugh. I love laughing. I love when I can help people smile around me.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Don't take yourself too seriously. I think a lot of people, like, they take themselves so seriously that they forget that fun. They forget, like, no matter how good we are, we're gonna make mistakes. I mean, we're going to make mistakes, and don't let mistakes beat you up. I mean, just learn from them. Most mistakes are a cheap college course. Just learn from it and excel from it, and put your faith in God, and somehow it's going to bless others or turn out well. We might not see it in our lifetime, but it will happen.
Wow, that's really powerful. Yeah, that there's a lot of taglines there. I love so it sounds like you take your work seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And sometimes
Good one.
I think God honors that. And yeah, if we take ourselves too seriously, God might find a way to help us with that, I think is the way you work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we got to laugh. I mean, I think it's been scientifically proven, but my wife is good at helping the whole family. When she starts laughing, the whole family starts laughing. And
That's good.
there's just some good endorphins get released, and we just can't take ourselves too seriously. Well, Lynn, thank you for joining the podcast today. Congratulations on your success. Really, really appreciated you sharing some of the journey through COVID. And that's I think we all have, if we're in business or just in life in general, we all face crisis, and it's not whether we're going to or not. It's how we react to that and how we respond, and if we grow through it. And every crisis is an opportunity. I think it was Churchill that said, "Never waste a crisis." And you certainly have. I can tell, spiritually, financially, just your family has gotten stronger because of crisis. And we never want to wish that on anyone, but it seems like you've really responded well. So thank you for joining the podcast today, and wish you all the best. Appreciate your generosity. May God bless you and continue to bless Shady Maple, and may it continue to be the largest buffet in the USA.
Well, thank you. This was fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lynn, and thanks everyone for joining today's episode of the Generous Business Owners Podcast. Join us again next week for the next episode of the Generous Business Owners Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Generous Business Owner Podcast with Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt. Make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can find the guest contact information in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode.